Inventor Michael, a delight to have you on the Work and Worldview podcast. Thanks so much for joining me. I've been following you on Instagram for a while. I've seen the inventions that you're creating. I realize the world-changing potential of some of these inventions, and it's just a joy to talk to you in person. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so
All right. So, just getting started, tell me a little bit about your early life, values, childhood, and the home you grew up in, and what sort of formed you there.
Sure. So I was raised by a single mom.
Hmm.
And so a lot of my life was spent kind of solo learning kind of masculine elements there.
Hmm.
Like I was always into engines, always tinkering from a young age, building stuff. A lot of it was self-taught, just along the way of tearing down engines and like destroying my mom's house with grease because I had no idea how it went. But I was raised by her, and she instilled, a lot of values in me that have continued to guide me through, some of these elements here. But had no strong father figure in my life, and so I was carrying around the father wound of needing validation for a long time, which I will say played an element in the path that I chose to walk of fixing world problems that way. There's an element to where in most people's lives, their dad says, "Oh, you're a carpenter, you've made it, son, good job," or "You're a mechanic, that's good enough." And like there's like a trigger that happens, and I am forever deprived of said trigger. So like
Hmm.
now that like in the most beautiful way that has led to a limitless ambition to where, like I will continue to innovate in this world
Hmm.
because of that. So
Okay. Okay.
my mom did what she could with me.
Hmm.
I was a difficult teenager, a very blurry consciousness. All right. So it was between toxins in the environment and other elements. Like I was not very, this version of me didn't exist at all. So like
Sure.
very blurry, very emotional, very lots of chaos, and so, there was religious elements to my home that taught me
Hmm.
some core values of things. My mom was a Christian person and still is to this day. And that led me to that there's more out there than what we understand than what's right in front of us. And that has continued an investigation into spirituality and where does the soul exist and where does the spirit exist that has crafted this path as well. So
Okay.
you'll find by the end of this podcast, I've walked the very narrow road
Hmm.
to this job. And
Sure.
a part of that was spiritual investigation of what is my convictions? How much faith in what I'm feeling do I have?
Hmm.
And a lot of that comes from there, but a lot of it has come from this world is wild, and there's forces at work that are needing to be investigated for sure.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Tell me a little about so you're a tinkerer, you're a kid, you're a tinkerer, etc. Moving into adulthood. When does inventing become a vocation? What does that look like? What are what led to
Well,
that?
all right. For the record, I go by Inventor Michael because it allows the mind of the population to expect new thinking from the inventions, right? So like we as people, we've looked to the great minds of Tesla, Edison, all the inventors there.
Hmm.
So inventor opens up the new.
Hmm.
But I never really wanted to be an inventor in the first place. And so I have two skills in this world, and that is root cause analysis and deductive inference. So I am able to trace problems
Hmm.
to why they keep occurring.
Hmm.
And then now, after practice and refinement, I'm able to just see what isn't there. Okay. And so like, why does this keep happening in regards to that? Those are the two elements required for the full mastery of the gift of invention. Okay. So the better you are at those two elements of basically following the problem down to what's going on here
Hmm.
and then figuring out why and what's not there, that's where the true gift of invention lives. So I've
Excellent.
mastered both of those processes and I have applied those skills to our civilization. Right. So like why poverty? I can give you a big long report of both the roots down to them and then what's not there to fix it.
Okay.
And that is my ability in this world. And you'll find through hearing this story that I've had the same technology course sets for 12 years. Okay, or longer than that. And in the time where these problems are solved, I've used those abilities, the abilities that I've mastered to do this job
Hmm.
to solve other problems out there, or to at least have some keys to understanding that, like, yikes, like we need to look this way or that way, and it has provided a gateway to an all new perspective that is at the very foremost of almost every industry that exists.
Gotcha. That's all.
It's wild.
All right. So your company is called CleanTech. CleanTech.
CleanTechSystems.com is our website there. It's
Okay.
just CleanTech, and that was just clean technology, and it's just stuck. It's the parent company of all of my solutions.
Okay.
So within CleanTech, there are 9 core high impact sciences. Today, we will talk about 2 of them, and that's plenty, I assure you.
Okay.
We don't want to go any further than that.
The rest we'll have future podcasts about, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
Great.
so cool things is that like I've learned that I'm in this for the rest of my life, right? There are things that what's more important to go out and solve, and the answer is nothing. And so in which case I'm here, I'm a meat sack trapped on a rock floating in space. Okay. What am I to use my time with? What am I to use my time with? And you'll find that those who have the ability to act have a responsibility to act. And because of my development here, I'm certain that there are things that I'm doing that only I can do as needed that way. So
All right.
CleanTech was started. I'll just drop into the history of the whole entire thing. And so when I was working in corporate America at Hewlett Packard, and I had a technical background before there, like rebuilding consumer and commercial electronics. I was the guy that you'd call when your computer broke, your cell phone. As a tinkerer, as a technical person, I've always just kind of done that.
Right.
And so I went to the corporate world. I saw that there was no actual problem solving being done there whatsoever, and it was just recycled innovation. So I was bored. And so I took the resources that I had through this corporate job, and I ran the process of root cause analysis
Mm-hmm.
on the idea of suffering. Okay. That is how I got to this and what it looks like at first. Because I saw homeless people outside and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what, trace it. What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like? What's going on here? Like, why is there so much of it? And so at first, it looks like the problem is money. All right. And it looks like, if they had money, they'd have a house. They wouldn't be this way, like so on and so forth. That's what it looks like. Cause analysis means you got to get to where it is.
Mm-hmm.
And we got it. Money is underpinned by fuel. Fuel, energy usage, coal, diesel, gasoline, all of that, natural gas, all of that underpins the dollar. All right. It underpins why. So like even companies like Hewlett Packard or any company, they have to keep the lights on. They have to keep the products moving. And the grindstone of this process here, the boot behind their head is that fuel bill. All right. So like what it costs to get their goods there, to keep the factory running, all of that is energy cost that is driving the entire system. So when you really trace it, fuel/energy is like the biggest problem of our world. And so we as humans, we built a beautiful infrastructure of making fuel work for us. All right. We got really, really good at building engines,
Mm-hmm.
really good at it. So like, look at how many we built, like mass production. They're all running. Yeah. They have a little bit of issues and they're a little bit cumbersome, but like we got good at engines as a species in this timeline. And so I was bored at Hewlett Packard, and I was like, okay, let's solve that. Let's solve fuel. So how do we put something in fuel? Like what? How do we stop this? Like how do we make it better? Was the
Okay,
idea?
so Michael, let me just review for a second. So you're seeing these instances of impoverished people, and
Mhm.
you're recognizing that one of the fixed costs that sort of is underneath everything, right, is the cost of transportation, the cost of fuel that our entire economy is built on, right?
That's
Okay,
right.
all right.
That's
So using your
right.
root cause analysis, you're now
I've,
working through
I've
that
rooted
problem.
it down to fuel.
Okay, gotcha.
Fuel and energy usage. And so
Okay,
then on the other side of deductive inference, what's not there? Like engines are what's doing it. Engines are what's consuming it. So why does the engine need fuel? Right? Simple question. Simple question. And this simplest answer to not let everybody wonder, I usually leave people hanging right there, but is because air is not combustible. All right. So air doesn't go boom. Doesn't
hmm,
go boom without stuff in it. That's how it is. It's why you're able to light a lighter and the whole earth doesn't explode. Okay. That's what that is. So air is not combustible was the answer there. So then, okay, so if you gave it a combustible air to breathe, would you still need the fuel? So a gasoline engine right now, if all atmospheric air all of a sudden became flammable, the engines would run just fine, right? So like they'd suck it in, they'd ignite it, and it would go boom. It would turn the crank, away the engine goes. Okay, so air is not combustible was where that went, and then when you look into it right away, you see these little tiny hydrogen generators. But you continue onwards to why those aren't everywhere, and it became very clear that you cannot take from something and give back to the same something for gains. Okay, it's physics. Okay, you cannot do that no matter what. So a watt is a watt is a watt. If you plug in a toaster into your car, your RPMs go like this.
Mhm.
Okay, and then
Sure.
the computer says we're going slow, and so it increases the fuel, and that's how that works. And it's counteracting the toaster being on board of that. The alternator slows down. So you can't take from something and give back to something. So humans from 1950s to the 90s, or even beyond, even still, unfortunately, they've all had these little mason jar little hydrogen generators, right? And they're very proud of them. It's disruptive. They claim all sorts of fuel gains and 20% here, 30% there. It cleans up combustion. Hotta, 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 hot. That's what they do. All right. And so because it's a very hard thing to prove, it's a very hard thing to verify, but like the concept makes sense. It's like, okay, you're making it from it, and then you're giving it to it, and it goes bang, and so on and so forth. These little devices were everywhere, but why were they not being revered as the reason that way? And that's because of physics. So one step further in the root cause analysis here is the physics is the problem. So what's missing there? And the answer was external power to drive the mason jar hydrogen reactions. Okay, so if you ran this thing not using the car, not using the alternator, not using the vehicle, then you are making a combustible thing and adding it to something that's already going. All right, so I had it solved at that point. So it was a series of thoughts that got it all the way there. I said screw it, let's quit, and so I quit. Okay, I said I had something a little bit more advanced than just that. I had an electrochemical fuel cell, which were still to this day nowhere near the reason I quit. But what I was like, let's go solve this way. We got a premise. We know that we could do external sources to drive all this. Let's go for it. So I quit, and I had a friend that knew a rich lady, and I was like, that's enough, and like I just went for it. That's not how it all works. Just so everybody in the audience understands, don't do that. All right. Or do that, because if you hear the story of what happened after that, it was all kind of worth it. I'm not going to lie, but like it was not nearly that simple. All right. And so he quit and found a little Craigslist investor, and we started with the concept of battery driven electrolysis. So at the time, this was 13 years ago from right now. But 13 years ago, we had AGM batteries that were heavy and shitty. They're not very good batteries. But we wanted to drive electrolysis off that, so that you plug in the truck, it charges up the batteries, then whatever those batteries do is fundamentally gains to the engine. Made sense to us. So 13 years ago, we had a little shop in Colorado Springs. We called it CleanTech because it was just to clean up the environment technology. That's what it was called. And we had a little investor, and we had a shop downtown Colorado Springs. She passed away. All right, so she got diagnosed with colon cancer, and she was gone within about a week or 10 days. Again, like there was
Gosh.
no time to recover
Oh my
whatsoever.
gosh. Okay.
So I had a functioning prototype at the time, and then we were just about to the diesel. Like if the industry knew, like when you see the Netflix special of this story, like if you knew how close we were back then to what you're seeing today, like you'd be like, holy crap, like you were super close. We were
Mm,
very close.
mm.
So what happened is she passed away. There was no plan in place for that to continue. So I did what I knew how to do, and I used some of my remaining resources to book venture capital deals and different groups out there and here in Colorado to try to save the progress of where I was. That did not work either. So all I did for the better part of about 7 months, 8 months was professionally mow down deer. Boom, just boom, 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 deer in the headlights. We're talking groups that like had no bearing on it. I figured it was an idea big enough that any group should be wanting to be involved in it, because if you get it right, it's worth the future of mankind and worth about $1 trillion. I figured that was enough. What it turns out is that if it's never been done before, that there's a Wayfinder's paradox for all the technologies. Okay, so like where this strategy had never been done. Still to this day, I'm in possession of the foremost edge of it. Still hasn't been done right. And because of that, it's in what's called now, after a long time, I had to name it, called the Wayfinder's paradox. All right.
Okay.
So that's where you know, and you can't, and they don't know, so they won't. And like it continue onwards until you sell your way out of pet rocks or whatever it may be to get out of that. And what's amazing is how far the Wayfinder's paradox actually carries through this whole thing. So this was not identified back then. So like I was just irritated and upset. Like I couldn't get the point across. So I looked once again, turned the process of root cause analysis to me in the findings.
Hmm.
And I said, what is the deal? All right, like what's going on here? Like, why am I not getting this across? Like, it's a $1 trillion technology. Like they should not be this difficult. And so then it was their understanding. All right. So it was that you as a person don't know what your background is, but I'm highly certain it's not advanced combustion dynamics. So making an informed decision about advanced combustion dynamics, very challenging for you. So if I gave you a choice, I'm like, should we do it this way or this way? You're like, I don't know. Like, yeah, like I don't know how to do that. And so the same thing with these people and their money, where they don't know. All right, so
Hmm.
they don't know, but they use their money to have the power in the situation, right? Like they're like, I have the checkbook, and we should do it this way because this worked for this laundromat I knew.
Hmm.
That's how they know how to do things. They know how to point back to what's worked. Here we go. But when it's like, okay, this is into the unknown, and I've never gone to the unknown, they've never even wanted to go to the unknown. Almost impossible,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Almost. Actually, you know what? It is impossible. That's the one impossibility in this world. I will
Okay.
tell you, it's isolated as such.
Okay.
Isolated root cause, human understanding, didn't understand. So I had an idea come to me. I was like, okay, you're broke, you got no money, you don't have any land, you don't have any way to do any of this. Like, what can you do? Like, how did it happen back in the day? You know what I'm saying? Like back in the BC times, like what happened? And I got this image of a man carrying a bushel of wheat to the market. All right. So like on his back, I saw it's like a black and white image. I don't know. It just came in my head, and it might have been in my phone somewhere. I don't know. Either way, I saw this dude carrying this bushel of wheat. And I was like, all right. So commodities production, grow something. You grow something to sell something to build value where there was none. Right. So like we have to generate it somehow. And so about 10 milliseconds after that bushel of wheat image came through, came the shipping containers into farms. Okay. Like that.
When was this, Michael?
Maybe 2014.
Okay.
2015, maybe somewhere in
Okay.
there.
Yep.
But then, luckily for me, and I don't exactly. So there's a little bit of ways where like it's debatable what mechanisms caused the decisions to be made. I'm not gonna lie, but as I got the shipping container design, I was pretty fluent with a CAD program. I started CADing up some designs, and I realized that like I am not an authorized general contractor. All right, like you're gonna put these things down. They're gonna come in, and like you got to have land that you own or rent it, and like what happens if you lose the land? Like I had just lost my shop. Like I lost everything when
Mhm.
that investor lady died. Like I lost it all. Beautiful explosion. Just if anybody's ever interested, what a bang. Like that, like a whole collapse of realities occurred. It
Uh,
was super cool. Like super cool from a like holy crap perspective.
uh,
Like what a bang. And so I realized that like that the chance land ownership here in the United States is excruciatingly challenging for a person that starts with nothing.
mhm.
Okay. Period. They made it remarkably challenging, and I was respected that. Knew I was nowhere near it. I had no money, no nothing that way. So if I built these things in shipping containers, I'm gonna be stuck somewhere if a crazy landlord wants them. And so it quickly became. So I told you I was a tinkerer. I liked vehicle technology, and it went in all by itself into semi trailers. All right. So semi trailers. So I made the decision, and then all the good shit happened, which is usually unusual, where you identify the good stuff and then you're like, okay, and then you make a decision. This went the other way. This went semi trailers make more sense. I barreled in on it, wrote a Craigslist ad, and ended up finding a partner for Unit One, which was a cannabis production platform here in Colorado back when that was legal. All right. So we were going to rent it out. I had never grown anything. I'd
Mhm.
never done anything, but I wanted to build the systems, rent the systems to the budding cannabis industry, and then just keep doing that. And we make a little bit of rent and so on. And so semi trailers became the clear platform for us because it's legally classified a machine like working on a vehicle, right? They can't tell you. I can grab a 6-inch hole saw and put a hole straight through the hood of my Denali, and not a single legal entity on earth can tell me a thing about any of that.
Okay. Yep.
So in regards to that, the semi trailers became a vehicle classification for an agricultural platform. All
Okay.
right. Like it made a whole lot of sense from a like who I was, what I wanted to do, and like what can I build legally without going to jail, without needing, thousands of dollars in permits and certifications and hiring on like 20 old engineers that all have these stamps that they're really proud of and stuff. Like I just wanted to build the things and rent them. So semi trailers made a lot of sense for that one reason alone. And then it continued to get more advanced as to why semi trailers. All right, so like their insulation, food grade, the drainage of the floors, easier to work on, titles, assets, insurance, moving them places. Lots of great reasons why semi trailers are significantly superior in relationship to agriculture than shipping containers. And
Okay.
you'll find that a lot of people at the time, I don't know what everybody believes out there, but humans are kind of a hive mind. And there's research that shows that when someone gets an idea, about 10 other people on the planet get the same idea at the same time. You'll find that most of those groups, there's been many groups doing shipping container farms. They got the same inspiration that I got at that time. The timeline from when freight farms was started versus when this occurred, it's all about the same, to where that containerized agriculture idea came to them, but they just never refined it into what worked for the time. They took it at the core essence, capitalized on it, and raised a bunch of money around the platform. You'll find that most of those entities are now out of business, or at least struggling to maintain business because it sucks as a business.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, and for a lot of reasons. So I started that, and so we built Unit 1, and then we got funding for Unit 2 a little bit, Unit 3, and I was in the cannabis industry, but I was never able to legally grow cannabis plants, and because of the fuel system technology. I never wanted to break the law ever. Okay, it's not the type of technology you want to get trapped in jail with. Okay, that's a surefire way to lose your mind. Secondly, it's so important that like you owe it to the world to kind of get it to where it belongs. You can't break the law. And so I've stayed pretty much on the legal, not even pretty much, exactly on the legal side of the world to protect the future that the original technology is bringing that way. So I ended up in the hemp industry doing clones, doing feminized seeds for a really long time, and doing a rosin press full spectrum CBD extract well before it was cool. Okay, so
Okay.
like well before that was common. And then I saw the writing on the wall of the hemp industry of the greed going in to oversaturate the market in there. And so we started culinary food mushrooms, and we were doing shiitake, lion's mane, and the oyster mushrooms out of the same semi trailer platform to be that commodities production to make some money around here. All right. So we were selling hemp plants, selling seeds, selling stuff, but like that whole industry was going to die. And I saw it. And so I started into culinary mushrooms.
Okay. And how did that idea come to you? How did not everyone's just going around thinking culinary mushrooms. How did you come into that?
That's an awesome question. I think I saw a documentary on culinary mushrooms and did some research. Somewhere along the lines, realized that mushrooms made a whole lot of sense for growing, and they still to this day do. And so I ended up getting trained on that. Like again, I never grew anything. Okay, I was the technical guy. Bring me your iPhone, fix it.
Right. Right.
I had uncovered along the way a pretty good green thumb for growing plants. All right, like I got good at it, and because I saw it, not that I wanted to grow plants, that I had to grow plants. So like had to learn to do it good, and like what does that mean in the simple way? And you'll find that in all agriculture, there's forums upon forums of growers that that have the best bee's knees way of doing stuff. And so it's my job to figure out which one of them what was right, what wasn't, and just so that I could do the job I had set out to do. And so learn to grow the plants. Then I got trained to grow the mushrooms. Then the town of Castle Rock, where I was operating it in, wanted my land, and they had a developer that had $300 million to build some park that actually never happened. But they wanted me out of the way. They thought I'd be easy. I was not easy. So listen to every neuron you're speaking with, put war paint on their faces and stuff. And I went to war with the town of Castle Rock. There's probably posters there, and they probably still wake up in the middle of the night screaming my name because I gave them absolute hell. And so
Alright.
I was not going down without a fight, and I stalled for almost a year and a half while I tried to figure out what to do. This is a hard business to pick up and land, and while we did make money along the way, never enough to feel good about it. Like, it was enough to keep going and build some experimental systems and stuff along the way, but nothing like, hey, let's buy a facility. Didn't happen. All right. So like I had to fight tooth and nail. I ended up having a daughter that was on the way, and like I ended up getting cleared to run in Castle Rock, but like they wanted me to call them anytime I moved a trailer, and they're just going to be so in my stuff that like, get out of my way. And like that's not what I wanted. And so I had a daughter on the way. We were in a small house. It was time to move. Long story, but more or less wound up in the eastern plains of Colorado, which is where I am today. Not this beautiful forest that you see behind me. This is fake. I am in the eastern plains of Colorado now, where I tried to jumpstart my own mushroom operation machine
Hmm.
and my own thing. But being out here an hour and a half from civilization, no one drives this far from mushrooms, I promise.
Okay.
All right. Like, it's very hard to get a cost effective, like, fresh sales business going.
Hmm.
And right as I reactivated units 8 and 9 on a new design that me myself was to run, COVID hit. And so,
Mm.
like, no restaurant on earth wanted to talk about anything at all, let alone mushrooms, which is already a hard conversation. So, being out here, the original model was bring people to the mushroom farms micro retail. All right, where like you show up, you're like, my mom has a catering business. Can she come see your farm? Sure. You tip us, you pay us cash, keep the change. That was the business. All right. It was
Okay. Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome working that way. Here out here in the countryside, this has set that commodities production platform to expert mode V2, like exponential 2. So
Hmm.
like it's super hard out here in a lot of ways. No one's driving this far from mushrooms. Then COVID was going on. I was in some deep. So I decided to try to do a supplement business where I was selling what I called meal skip at the time, which was hemp, quinoa, and king trumpet mushrooms,
Hmm.
and to where you take like 6 of them, 8 of them, skip a meal, so like instead of settling for McDonald's, you
Hmm.
take 8 of these things, it swells in your stomach, and then you go home and you cook yourself a good meal. And this was at the time where social media, I was just getting started on social media, so making that product popular, in social media is almost impossible to do. And so we ended up getting our ass kicked by quite a bit, and then it really became building the solar farms machines, the semi trailers into farms, because that's something that we can build, send out, and become a product that we can manufacture.
Okay. So you went from being more of a service business to a
Manufacturer.
manufacturer. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
So I moved out here
Hmm.
with units 8 and 9 in tow.
Okay.
We are now at units 045. So units 45 has been built with 46 and 47, and all the way up to maybe, I don't know, 56 that are
Yeah.
about to be built.
Okay.
So along
So
the way, yeah.
So for people that haven't had the pleasure of seeing your Instagram channel, okay, these you call them reefers, right? The refrigerated, the
Yep. So these
refrigerated.
were once refrigerated trailers that were
Okay,
designed to keep ice cream frozen in Phoenix
okay.
that we then repurpose to be, now we've done it for cannabis, we've done it for strawberries, we've done it for microgreens,
Hmm.
environmental climate control, solar
Hmm.
power equipped, life support systems, very advanced in a lot of ways. As for environment management, controlled environment agriculture, like we made a lot of breakthroughs because we've gotten our asses kicked quite a bit by it all. So like a lot of what I'm about to share with you in this whole thing is earned knowledge. So unlike like I studied it and built it and it worked great, like this is stuff like we've done it the wrong way. So now we know what the right way is.
Sure.
So that changes how things are engineered, and it changes the value of the technology and the thinking behind it all, because it's all come from actually doing the job at scale.
Okay.
And so I didn't see any of that coming. So let the record show to the internet, to the people, to the species, that I really just wanted to solve the fuel problem.
Right. Right. You wanted to solve the food problem, keep your head above water. You went into the production, and then you realize, "Oh, these units I'm making are effective. I could sell these to people. So why don't you just take a minute and just kind of summarize the offering around the units? So
That's where I'm
what
going to
are
go.
they? What does it cost? How do people onboard to that if they're interested?
This gets really cool now. Okay, so firstly, let me tell you. So up until about 3 weeks ago, I would tell you that the fuel system, getting that installed on planet Earth, is of the highest importance possible. Okay, and so when it comes down to what can we achieve here, getting that done, making every engine a hybrid, is worth the pain and the blood required to do so, because it results in prosperity for the human race. Now, what I've learned, and I mean this, is that people, humans, all of them, are running like a diesel engine that is getting too much fuel. Okay. We want the protein out of the food and it's carried in a bunch of nonsense that way. And so we're all running remarkably digestively rich. And so what I've learned is that it's basically killing us all. And that is it's a very concerning conclusion. I this message carries around that you are running like and you do not know it because the OBD2 system for the human has not been invented yet. So you don't know. So you just pound in this food and you're like, I'm gonna eat this cheeseburger, these Cheez-Its, whatever it may be. And it is clogging up the entire system to where if it were a truck, you have plumes of black smoke coming out of you.
Okay.
And it's super dangerous.
Okay.
And so the degradation of our way of life is degrading because the quality of nutrients that we are eating and what we have just become super comfortable with and what we think is normal is straight up killing us. And so where this gets really interesting is so the business of building the machines suffocated and died like a generator that ran out of fuel. Okay, so the business of CleanTech was supposed to be funded by X Fuel and its research, the fuel system and its research. That's the main engine of this business.
Hmm.
The solar farms, the building the semi trailers into farms, that was the backup engine. All right, so that's the little pull start 10,000 watt generator that like keeps the lights on. You can run a couple drills off of it. You're not really going to do anything major on a 10,000 watt generator, right? But like that's what we had, that's what functioned, that's where it was going, and it was a long way off from the Wayfinder's paradox of solving X fuel. So we've been running on this little backup generator, but then slowly but surely, like using the Instagram and the TikTok and all that stuff, the sales of it started to stop. And it was like if it was an engine, it went
Okay.
and it
Yep.
went out. And so like nobody was buying farms and I knew why. And that's because for you, sir, Mr. Jonathan, to go to your community, if you wanted my machines, you think I'm cool. That's awesome. You still have to go to your community and raw mushrooms in the park. You know what I'm saying? Or go out and hustle. So you give me your money, I build you your machine and you're all of a sudden an entrepreneur. So that's not a great business model. All right. It works in a couple ways because mushrooms are needed, but it doesn't really work for you, Mr. Jonathan, because there's a significant amount of risk to this. And so unless you sold a piece of land or, wanted to get into it, whatever it may be, like there's a lot of safe investments out there to make money on your money and then you're good to go and you can buy yourself a jet ski. That's what people are looking for these days. And so I was aware that the X of the mushroom business was unsolved of where does everybody's mushrooms go? Okay, that was the thing. We had a couple like almost partners that made commitments, then they bit off more than they could chew for doing it and couldn't do it. And like it screwed a bunch of people along the way, but it still required where do the mushrooms go perspective. And like I said, I wanted to do a supplement, but the supplement requires money. And that's too much in its regard. So like I had to figure something out to really help this out because you could be a great mushroom operator in your city if you were able to do the risk of it all, right? So like you could go out, feed your community, who I assure you at this point in time desperately needs the mushrooms that you could provide. But if you're too scared to do it, they never get it. So it became a really big problem here, and the business of solar farms suffocated and died because it was too scary. And I get it. I respect the reasons why it died.
So again, just review. So people would buy these units, but maybe they weren't good salespeople. They weren't really managing demand in a way that was effective for them
Most
to
of the
clear
most
their
of the
volume.
fail points because of that were they wanted to grow the mushrooms, sell them to the chefs, and that's that.
Hmm.
Every chef on planet Earth is pissed off all the time. They don't care about what you have to say. Changing their menus a pain in the ass. They don't care. Okay, and so anybody that walled themselves off to the community, anybody that did all that, they like where they didn't want participants. They're scared of the security risk and all sorts of things they didn't want to do. If you weren't that micro retailer like point that Walgreens of fresh mushrooms in your community, you're never going to make it. You're never going to make it. Like you got it. It doesn't take many humans, but it takes some. And so like the distributors don't care because I've asked the question, have you had a king trumpet mushroom over 4,000 times? I'm sitting at 48 yeses total at doing this job at scale. So like how the hell could a distributor want your king trumpet mushrooms if they're searching for 48 people that have ever had them to buy them? They
Okay.
don't know because they're not available. And that's how that goes. So unless you inbound point where they can come to you in fresh mushroom cook-offs, the businesses fail because they like that's how it works right now. That's what it is.
Okay.
They were getting their butts kicked by that process, by not following the prescription, by not wanting to have it be a member of their community, just a quick paycheck and all sorts of stuff. And so I knew I had to figure out something to stabilize the program, but the supplement business required an investment that we never got. It's a money printer set to awesome mode, but it never got there. One day it might, I don't know. But the point is it was kind of getting screwed. And so what I realized is that the mushrooms needed to go someplace. I was like walking into REI looking for a hammock of all things, and I saw this rack of MREs, and the light bulb that went off was about like a 100,000 watt light bulb in my brain where I went, that's it. And so that's how that's done, because when you're making a supplement, it resulted in where 1 pound of lion's mane makes 8 bottles of stuff for me. So if you're selling me 2,000 pounds of lion's mane, like I'm making bottles and I'm never going to sell that much, and the whole program collapses. Okay. So it couldn't quite work that way. Even when you have money, there's a ramp to
Okay.
getting that program to work that I could
Okay.
never jump. But the MREs allow me to buy 1,000 pounds of your mushrooms and make 1,500 MREs with them or something like that.
So
Right.
folks who have no military background, was just to
Meals ready to eat. We're
okay.
talking almost Stouffer bags, or those types of things are what we're now making to move a half pound of mushrooms at scale or a pound of mushrooms at scale safely. All
Okay.
right. So it started off to where, hikers and disasters, sending packets of MREs and meals down to tornado stricken areas or hurricane areas, high impact that way. But then it quickly evolved to the bachelor eating Tyson's chicken. All
Okay.
right. So who aren't feeding themselves well, that need access to healthy food, don't know how to cook it all, don't know where to look for it all. We got to be able to Trojan horse mushrooms into their lives somehow. And so bachelor meals to it, or family meals to where you throw in a cup of water, cook it up, and it's super good each time.
Mhm.
That made a lot of sense. So the way this program works now is I have 6 positions for two unit operations. So it's 2 retired reefer trailers, 48 feet. One is laboratory and incubation. The other is a full fruiting chamber. Combined, they grow 2,000 pounds of culinary mushrooms a month. I teach participants to grow 75% king trumpet, 25% lion's mane. I teach them their machines. I teach them how to grow. I teach them, most importantly, the community aspect. While I am positioning to buy back these mushrooms at half of that, it will only ever be half, because you have the responsibility to go feed your community the rest of those halves that way. I don't care if you donate them. I don't care if you sell them, but I'm only buying back half because this isn't that way. This
Mhm.
is it's
Mhm. Mhm.
unacceptable for it to be the other way.
Sure. Sure.
And so I will teach them all of those things in a comprehensive package. Now, I this year only have 6 positions to build those farms. I'm fairly certain all 6 are sold out. By the time this video is edited and sent out, it is sold out. I have 5 deposits in as of now, and I got 1 slot that I'm sure will fill up pretty quick, because it did de-risk the entire thing. Okay, so now we have this figured. It's
Sorry, just to be clear, what did de-risk the entire thing? What are you referring?
the MRE program
Okay.
de-risked you becoming a mushroom farmer.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yep.
global deployment of all the of a web sellable product, because I have the following that I have. There's 265,000 people that follow me. I can assure you 99% of them do not have $165,000 hanging around for this program.
Okay.
All right. So, but they would love to support me. They'd love to support this plan. So when we have an MRE, when that's there, even though the turnout for people to come buy them, including whole countries and stuff, was really cool, and like the United States government is interested in all this, I bet you good money that 2 things will happen. Number 1, I'll never sell to those big people because they'll be sold out in my web store for forever. That's it, number 1. Number 2, because the buy my mushrooms back, I need to make my money back, because that's been removed from the equation. Now your community will respond carefully to you. They will respond careful. They will care more about buying your mushrooms, because what happens is, and I don't know what this mechanism is entirely, but when you need someone to buy something from you, they will exercise that no in a toxic enjoyment capacity just because they can. And it is uniform throughout the human race almost, to where if you're like, please buy this, nah, and that's how that goes. Okay. And so now that I've removed the mushroom growers' desperation to make their money back from their investment because I am that safety net, I bet you a good gentleman's dollar that nobody out there will sell me a single mushroom for my MRE program because your community will respond accordingly and you'll be sold out. Right. So
Gotcha. Okay.
that's my little gamble now at this point in time. I am prepared, both financially and systemically, to intake half of those operators' mushrooms indefinitely. I'm good with it. I know how it works. I know the math. It's fine.
Excellent.
However, I'm almost certain that the people in your community will keep you sold out, and I'm going to be look real silly in my community for the MREs that never end up happening because your community supported you like I thought they would in the first place.
Brilliant. So Michael, I'm just going to summarize everything here. So what I heard was you have this offering. It's these 2 reefer trailers. You bring people to Colorado, right? You train them on how to operate these trailers to
Mhm,
grow lion's mane and king trumpet mushrooms, 75% king trumpet mushrooms,
mhm,
25% lion's mane, right?
mhm,
Those 2 trailers will yield 2,000 pounds a month,
mhm,
right? And you will buy back half of those 2,000. You'll buy back 1,000 pounds of their yield that you will then use in MREs, right?
mhm.
The cost of this offering is $165,000 for the training and for the delivery of the trailers, correct?
That is full Monty price.
Okay.
That is delivered to anywhere in the United States, set up, running, rocking and rolling at
Okay.
165.
Okay. Just curious. These are refrigerated trailers, right? Do they operate well in super cold environments like the northern? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So refrigerated means insulated.
Okay.
So we take great care in the climate control. We don't actually use the engines, just so everybody's aware. We build systems around it
Okay.
that way to do so.
Okay.
And yeah, I now have Canadian packages. I have Saudi Arabia packages for heating and cooling. I do have a standard package that works in the normal regions of the world.
Okay.
And I also have an outer space package. If you want to do this on the moon, if you want to do this on the moon, I can do it.
All right.
So, no,
All right.
serious. So
Fantastic.
this program here is now that I highly encourage you to watch some of my content. I've used AI to demonstrate people running like very poorly, like diesel engines. And once you start to realize that all of the food is filled to the brim with this nonsense and that people are basically suffocating, digestively speaking, bogged down like an engine that's getting way too much fuel. So you start to realize that this becomes one of the most important things that we could possibly do for our world is to ensure fresh access.
Okay. Michael, do you want to just summarize what you're looking for with the engines in terms of investment?
At this point in time, Mr. Jonathan, this is how we're doing this. There's some really cool programs about the mushroom farms the rest of the way. We have a new announcement coming up real shortly by the time this is aired to where there'll be co-op investments into bigger farms.
Okay.
So you as a person can make an investment into a 10 unit operation and that is tracked the rest of the way. I'm tired of raising money for X Fuel. I'm tired of the conversation. I'm tired of the challenges of it. We're going to do it this way. We're going to fix the world with mushrooms the rest of the way and I'll go finish X Fuel and everybody I will wave at them as I fly by. X Fuel is the most important technology to ever exist and ever be conceived of. It applies to every engine in service, including semi-trucks, locomotives, cargo ships, and power plants. Okay? It applies to all of them. Real-time creation of fuel is inevitable. There is no other option. However, I'm tired of convincing all of you of that, and I'll just show you what that means.
All right. All right. Inventor Michael, it's been a pleasure. This will not be our last talk, I'm sure.
No, no, you need to know the other side of the fuel, and I'm sure like we'll cover the other technologies as they come up that way.
I can't wait.
But yeah, I'm in this for the rest of my life, just so everybody understands. There's nothing more important to do than these things. What am I going to do? Go be a barista? I mean, I make a really great bartender. Listen to how well I can speak. I'd make some money, but but I can tell you that if I stop, those worlds that I'm trying to bring forward also stop. I now know at scale that the technologies that I'm a part of are sovereignly contained here. I know that.
Excellent.
And so it is my responsibility to get them done at scale as far as I can with my time here.
Excellent. All right, Michael, God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.